trust you're having a good day. Good to see you guys again. We just wait.
Good day, everyone. Welcome to today's live implementation session of DevOps batch at StegUp. Today, we will kick off Project 3, the main stack implementation. By the end of this session, you will have a production-ready Node.js application deployed on Ubuntu server. And during the course of this class, if you have any question, you can use the Zoom raise hand feature, and I will attend to you. So let's do an infrastructure recap of what we have been doing since. For week 1, we looked at LAMP stack implementation where we deployed a PHP application on our Ubuntu server using Apache web server. Week 2, we looked at LAMP stack implementation where we used Nginx as our web server. And today we are going to be deploying a modern web stack JavaScript single page application. And the shift is from a monolithic PHP files to JSON-based RESTful API communication between the React and Node.js application. The prerequisite for this class is to have our Git and Git CLI and our CLI, which is the terminal. For Windows user, you can use Git Bash, or for Mac users, you can use your terminal, the default terminal, Mac and Linux users. And remove SSH to our Ubuntu server. Then you should have your VS Code to edit the contents of the application, to edit your application. And if you're adding more features to it, you should have your VS Code or other IDEs out there. Then we should also have our node and npm installed on the Ubuntu server. So let's talk about what the main stack comprises of. It comprises of the React.js, Express, Web Framework, MongoDB, and our Node.js. For the users are going to be seeing the Node.js application, which is the front end that we have. And the backend comprises of the Express and Node.js. And we have Mongoose over here in the backend application for communication between the backend and the database. And so for database, we are using MongoDB 8 class, which is a managed NoSQL cloud database. Talking of cloud database, instead of like doing manual installation of our database, we are going to be leveraging database as a service for scalability and ease of management on 8 class MongoDB. And we are going to be provisioning a free tier cluster, then configure our IP whitelist and retrieve the connection string for Node.js. For the backend, we have the Node.js and Express, which will serve as the bridge between our database and the React UI. And this will process requests via JSON. The primary port for our data backend application is port 5000. And for the React front-end UI, the primary port for our React front-end will be port 3000. And we are going to have an automated build process using npm run build. It is a state managed. We also have state management, which handles users' interaction with the page reload on our front end, which is like the feature of React application. So this is the implementation process that we are going to follow. We are going to provision our AWS Ubuntu EC2, then do the creation of MongoDB cluster and the configuration. We're also going to be doing the configuration of the backend, where we are going to be installing our Node and Express, then do the build, and then move to the front-end integration to add our front-end application and deploy via npm script. So let's do a quick comparison between what we have been doing and what we are doing today. In our last implementation, where we implemented LangStack and LimpStack, we used PHP as our language, and today we are going to be using JavaScript for the full stack implementation. We used MySQL for the database in previous class, and this class we are going to be using MongoDB, which is a NoSQL database. For execution, we used Apache or Nginx, which serves as our web server. But now we are going to be using process-based, using Node and npm. The package manager, we used apt package manager, and now we are using the npm package manager for our Node application. So let's look at the live implementation of the MERN stack application. So I'll go to my AWS account and launch an instance. The instance type will be Ubuntu. Then we are going to be using Ubuntu 24.04 with the instance AMI is Ubuntu 24.04. Our instance type will be T3 micro. For the key pair, we don't have any key pair at the moment, so I will be creating a new key pair. And create key pair. This will download our key pair in the downloads folder. For the security group, I'm going to leave it as it is, the default settings. And for storage, I'll be using 8 gig. So let's go through the summary. For the AMI, we are using Ubuntu 24.2. The instance type, we are using T3 micro. And we're using the default firewall configuration and the default volume. So let me launch my instance. Then to connect to the instance, I'm going to copy the public IP address. In this class, I'll be doing like creating the command manually instead of like going to connect and to copy the command that you're going to be using. So let's go to our terminal. And I'll do SSH -I, then pass in our private key, which was downloaded. Install project Ubuntu at the public IP address that I copied. And this should connect to our instance. So if you are getting this error, you have to change the mode of this private key to 400. So let me do that now. Ch mode, ch mode 400 and project. Then let's try to connect again. And we should be connected this time. So now we are connected to our instance. Let's move on to the next step. Firstly, we are going to update our apt package manager and do apt upgrade to upgrade the packages that we installed, the default packages. And sudo apt upgrade. And let's go to the next step where we are going to be setting up our Node.js for installation. So this will add the Node.js software to Ubuntu repositories so that the apt package manager will be able to know the location of Node.js and for the installation. So for that, I will copy this. So if you are getting this one, it means the version that you are using has been duplicated and we have to use a more newer version. So to get a newer version of Node, we are going to the Node.js so the newest the latest version that we have is version 22x. So let's copy this. And do the installation. So the apt install and the Node.js. Mm, then we can do node-v to check the version. Now we have Node.js version 22.22 installed. Next step is to create our to-do application directory. Then cd into the directory and run npm init. So let's go ahead and do that. ensure consistency. Okay. Our project name to do, package name, you can also name it to do. And the version, we are using version 1.0.0. Description, entry point is index.js, test command, we don't have any test command, and we don't have repository. I'll just skip for the rest, license, IRC, and yes. So if you check the to-do directory now, we should have a package.json file. And if we cast the file, I'm going to have this congregation there. Yeah, so before we move on to the next step, do we have any question? Yes, Abraham, you can go ahead with the question.
Good afternoon, everyone. I noticed after we did we initialized the to-do directory.
Yeah.
There was the package. What exactly is the
Because the package.json file is going to is where you're going to store the metadata of your project. As you can see, when we are initializing the project, we were prompted to enter our project details, like the package name, the version that we are building, the description, entry points, and other details like that. It contains like the metadata of your project. Then, yeah, so let's move on to the next step. Moving to the next one, we are going to do our Express installation. We're going to install Express. Let's do that. npm install Express. Then create index.js file and install .env module. Let's install the .env module first. npm install .env and create an index.js file. And the content of our index.js file is this. So I've copied the content to this file and then we are running node index.js. Now we have our application running at port 5000. So let's open this port in the security group and try to access our application. Yes, Ibrahim, you can go ahead with your question if you have any.
I have a kind of silly question. We use index.js, node index.js to run the application. Yes, we indicated that index.js should be like the show or the way to run the application. But why are we using the node? Because I actually don't understand.
Like Node is this is a Node.js application, and Node is to like run our JavaScript on server instead of running it on browser. Yeah, just like you have for Python, if you want to run a Python application, you have to run like Python, then the entry point. The entry point that we are using is index.js, and which we also passed here. You can decide to like change your entry point to maybe app.js or to use another name. Well, the most common one is index.js. And to run your application, you have to use like the binary that was downloaded on the application entry point.
Sorry, sir. Does that mean the index.js is located within the node, or maybe what is the directory where we install our files for the applications?
This index.js is in the to-do directory. So let me show you ls. I have an index.js file here. And we also have like the modules that were installed previously. If I list the modules, not modules. So these are the modules that came with this .env and express installation. So the application that we are running is in this directory index.js. I hope this answers your question.
Yes, sir.
Okay, yes, so let's move on to the next step, which is to expose our port 5000. So going to the instance, then under security, now security group, we are creating a new inbound rule to expose port 3000, 5000. 3000 is for our front-end application. And then let's copy the IP address, the public IP. And try to like access the application. Um, so if you are getting this connection refused, it's probably because your server is not running on this port, or you're using another port in your application, or maybe yes, it's because your server is not running on this port, which is true for our case because I've not started the application using Node.js. So let's try to refresh now, and we are getting welcome to Express. Yes, so moving on to the next step. What you are doing next is to create standard requests for our application, the post, get, and delete request. And to do that, we are going to be creating a new route directory. So let me create the route directory and seed into the directory. Then we are going to open our file. This is like creating the file first, then opening the file. And if you do Vim, you can like create the file directly. You can just skip this step and move to Vim API.js. And we are going to copy the contents of our API.js. And save the file. Okay. Can cut the file to ensure that you are copying the right content. Yeah, so let's move on to the next section where we are going to be creating the modules directory. And before starting the modules directory configuration, do we have any question? Okay, I'll take that as a no. So over here, we are going to take the back into the to-do directory and run and install the Mongoose module. So let's do that now. CD dot dot. This dot dot means like you are going to see the back to the parents directory of routes. Yeah, in the routes directory before. Now using dot dot, we see the back to the parent directory, which is the to-do directory. And I'm going to install Mongoose npm install. Then create the to-do.js file inside the models directory. Okay, dir models and pipe it to cd models. Then we are going to pipe that to like piping command like this is to and piping command is to like pass the output to the next one and the next one, maybe to pipe password echo command to like your application so that you can log in. Maybe for Docker login, you can pipe your password to the Docker login command. And this and is to like instead of like entering the commands one by one, you can just do and pipe the run the same command on the commands on the same line. Then we are going to touch our to-do.js file. Don't. So let's copy the contents of the to-do.js file. Vim to-do.js. And moving on, we are in the routes directory, open api.js and replace it with this code here. So let's go to our routes directory, cd dot dot, and we have our routes directory there. And we are going to open our api.js file. And to delete the contents of this file, we are going to use the %d on our Vim text editor. How to delete the content of the file, and I'm going to replace it with the new code, which will add the routes that we are for our application. In this route directory, in this code, we are configuring our get, post, and delete request. And the get to get our to-do list and our actions, and to post the actions and the delete using the ID. Now we have configured our route. So let's move on to the next step, where we are going to be creating our MongoDB cluster and doing the deployment, doing the configuration. And yes, so we are going to head over to Atlas DB. And create a cluster, build a cluster. I'm going to be selecting the free tier there. And this storage should be enough for everything we want to do here. This 512 512 MB. And we are using AWS as our cloud provider. For the region, you can select a region closer to where you have your instance. I have my instance in the Frankfurt region. Then I can tag this maybe application to do application. And then create the deployment. So after creating the deployment, we got the password and the username. You can update the username there. So DB user or use any password that you have in mind, be DB user. Admin DB user, and we have our password. So I'm going to save this in a file. Username, I have admin DB user. And for the password, I have this. And so let's choose the connection method. Create database user, then choose connection method. I'm going to be connecting using our MongoDB application, where we are going to use driver. For the driver, we are using version. Okay, yes, so that's true. And this is our connection string. I'm also going to save this. And done. So looking at this now, the next step is to configure our network access. Okay. And so let's configure our network access under database and network access. And for this user, we are going to edit the network access IP access list. Includes your current IP address. So this is the user that can connect to this particular instance. So let me just include one for our instance. That is the And we are using CIDR block 32 created as part of auto setup process. And confirm. I'm waiting for the status to be ready. Okay, now it is active. Next step is to create our .env file and add our connection string there. These are the steps you are going to follow to get the connection string. And you are going to get the connection string after creating your database. So let's create our .env file in the 2D directory. cd to do and vim.env. And this is my connection string. The connection string contains like the username and your cluster name. The username and the cluster name. Username, password. This is the cluster address and the cluster name. Next is to create an index.js file. Mhm. And add this contents there. So let's open our index.js file. And remember, we are replacing the content of this file, instance D, and pasting the new one. Up.js, index.js, and this. Verify, we have error block here, error request response next. Now you can run node index.js to start the application again. Object acknowledge. Let's open the file again. Okay. Yes, so I'm not meant to like copy this. That's why I got the error. And now we are getting an error from the parameter that we added there. Vim.env. And now I'm going to enter the insert mode and ensure that we are adding our string properly. So we should have DB equal to then your connection string. DB equal to then the connection string. And let's try to connect again. Let's try to start our new use new URL feature. That's very not supported. So I move the space there in the .env file. And we should be good now. Inject env file path at env local. Let's check the new key. Restore. Connect. Then we selected our driver application access data through tools. We're using the JS and data. Then let me confirm this. So for MongoDB, there was a transition from driver version 3, which we are using in the current code. Which is this should have our connection string here. New schema action Language tutor. Studio find. Okay, these are the test code. Yeah, so over here, the MongoDB driver has been updated, which is the reason why we're getting the error there. Now I'm going to remove this line, these two lines, use new URL filter and the use unified topology. So let's go back to our index.js file, vim index.js. Now let's test the connection again. And we're able to connect to the database successfully. These are like the bugs that you're going to also fix is when doing your project, and I'm sure you'll be able to get past that when you get to this stage. So the next step now is to test our REST API on Postman. So let's copy our public IP address again and send post get and delete request to test our post get and delete request. Now this is my Postman. Then I'm going to enter the HTTP endpoint URL at port 5000 /to do yeah, where is it? API to do's. So this returned an error. Can't post to this part. Let's go back to our So where we configured our post request, post to do's, API post to do's, request response. So we have our API post to do's, and it's going to accept this body. And I have my application.json there. Application/JSON. Then we configured our body with JSON there and got 5,000 /API to do's. Body complete connect distance. Let's update the endpoints that you have here. Last connection connected and IP right IP not added. And let me add another IP address. Employer maybe 6 hours and confirm. I'm still going to get the same thing. Okay, test result. Oh, for not fun. What's this? Probably there's content some discussion. Let's try and get the request first. Sending get request. So where we added our models, and the request under models to do, require touch models to do. In the routes directory, open API with JS. And our routes directory was created here. To this column ID. So these are post requests. Then we are creating request body. Body, then data request JSON data catch next. This is empty. Add models, and we have our to-dos.js. Language schema. To do next field is required. Use our schema. We have action string required to consist to the modules. So I'm just tracing back what we did or what we have done and open index.js and 5 add index.js, and we're able to see our Express. Welcome to Express, and we have MPDR route to the route. That's API.js. The routes directory. Installed mongoose hash. Inside modules folder created by name to this.js. And we added these models. And now update routes from the file API.js and routes directory to make use of new model. We have done these routes. Yes, if you have a question, you can go ahead.
Is it my role as a DevOps engineer to test my APIs from Postman, or it's just the backend rule?
Sorry, can you come again?
Is it my role as a DevOps cloud engineer to test my API using Postman, or it's just the backend rule?
Yes, it is backend role. Like the backend guys are the ones that will be responsible for like testing the application and ensuring that it runs fine. But for this program, we have to ensure that we have knowledge about like all around knowledge about front end and back end, which is why we are doing the testing of the backend application.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Yes, so I'm trying to like pinpoint like this requires space. What is this? And also note that these lines that I removed, they are like set as true by default in the new Mongoose version, MongoDB driver version, which is Mongoose. And we have this API version. Okay, I think the issue is from let's see. Yes, I stopped the server. transposed to this point. Injection from .env. Event committing is the code. Yes, do you have any other question? No. Refuse to connect. Let's check this security again. You have an inbound to in place. Can't get this. Yes, it is working now. Not sure what went wrong there. I just had to restart the server to restart the application. And you have complete project. Okay. So now we are able to send our post request using this action. And another thing is that I remove the space in between this column and the string. Now our post request is working. Now let's go to the get request to get what we have sent to our database through the post request. And now we have this action. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I sent this complete project 8 and 9 3 times, which is the reason why we are seeing it here appearing 3 times there. Then we have to test our delete request by deleting these two the duplicates of the complete project 8 and 9 and the duplicate of this one. So to delete the request to delete the action, we'll be using the action ID, which is this one that we have here. underscore ID. And I'm going to paste in the action ID there in the delete request and copy our URL. We are getting an error again. Delete, can't delete this. Let's see. Okay, yeah, so it's the same thing. You have to remove the space in between to have a valid JSON format. Socket angle. Mute countries. Don't save changes. Delete request. API to do's. And we have our contents type. Application JSON. And for the body, we are adding this for JSON underscore ID. Equal to this. And you can send a get request again. I'm still getting this error. For our delete request, let me confirm like the part that we set there. And so it's still the same part. Auto delete, then ID. So our delete request doesn't accept body. Instead, we have to pass in the ID with the endpoints. So we have completely deleted this request. This deduction. Let's look at another deduction. We have a duplicate here too. Let me copy the ID and delete it. So if I get the request now, we shouldn't have any duplicate again from our request. Now we have the request. We have complete project 8 and 9, complete project 10, and complete master project. I've been able to successfully test the endpoint, the post, get, and delete request. Now let's go back to our. Before going to the next session, do you have any question before moving to the? Yes, so I'll take that as a no and move to the next step. So over here, we are going to create our React client using the nps create React app. Now let's run the command. And we have to run this in the to-do directory, which is so let's go back to and I'll stop this backend application. Now we are going back to this. And just copy the connection string again and reconnect to our instance. Okay. Now cd into downloads folder. And to ensure that we are not, this is not active again. Okay, no, that's perfect. So cd into to do and mpx create React app. This should be our app name, client. And yes, you can ignore this duplicated one instance. This means like the modules that are being installed are duplicated and no longer supported. And also note that this particular command that I'm using is also duplicated. So you can look for the latest way, maybe using and another reason why this command is duplicated is because like it takes time and it is no longer supported by the team. So let's list what we have in this directory. Now we have our clients directory. We can delete this particular one and use voids to create the React application folder structure. And just delete dash rf. npm create voids at latest. Then we are going to pass in our application name, which is client, and enter. Yes. And we are going to select React. We are using JavaScript here. Invited button, experimental, no. And so I've created the app. So you can stop this. Now we have our client application. This client. And we have this file structure being created for us, the readme index.html and other files there. So moving on to the next step, we have to install concurrently. And with this concurrently, it will enable us to run like the node application and the client application together instead of having it will enable us to run the node application and the client application together. And we're also installing this node daemon application, which will allow us to run it at the background. And also restart the application if we make any changes to the code. Let's do the installation. And node daemon. And the option save dev. And it has been installed. Then the next step is to go to our to-do directory and copy the package this to the package.json file. This will allow us to run concurrently to run this start wash and to start the client application. City. Okay. So we are updating our script. Let me delete the client one. And this. Now we are replacing it with this one. So you can tap this to structure it properly. And so this is the start command. This will start the backend application, which is the command that we have been using. And we are also running this node daemon index.js, that is to run this index.js at background. And we are using concurrently over here the two modules that we installed. We are using concurrently to also start our client application. Let me save this and move on to the next. Now we are going to cd into the clients directory and update the package.json file. In the package.json file, I'm going to pause the backend application. That is, we're going to pause it, create this pause conversion there. cd column d. And so we can have our pause here, pause. localhost at this port. And you can see the details here. The purpose of adding this POSIT there is to make it possible for us to access the application directly from browser by using the URL. By using this URL instead of like having to type in the old URL that we're using. Localhost, then port 5000. And we're adding our comma here. Next step is for us to run npm run dev in the to-do directory. This will run our application. The backend application is also running on the front end. Missing script, npm error missing script. Name this mark. npm error missing script. We have this missing start script. npm start. So let's check the client, cd client, and pass the package.json file that will be. So you can see the script that we have. We have dev npm run dev. So we have npm run dev. Because we don't have npm start. And this one again, I'll see. Oh, we are not getting the previous error again from our front end. And it is exposed on port 5000 and 5173. Let's update this port. The reason why we are seeing these differences is because we are using Vite for this for the React app installation. Just see the into client. Yes, and Vim. Add SRC. App.jss. So let's check this. Let's open this port. Cat and grab the port 5000 317. Also to be. So let's go to the class directory again. Class invite config.js. So let's round up this. We're moving on to the next step. We have this. I'm going to configure the ports again to export the default one. And the conversion will be done in this vite config. Under plugins, then I'm adding the server block there. That way, we are going to ensure that we are consistent with the documentation you're using. Yes, so it is exposed input 3000. Now let's go to our AWS account. on the expose for 3,000. input.js. CD client, SRC, and components that vim input.js. Yeah, pasted in the input content of our input.js file and move into SRC client and then install Azure in client directory. So let's cd into our client directory. In the client folder and cd back into the components directory. Then we are going to paste in the content of our list to-dos.js and to-dos.js file. List to-do.js. And to-do.js file. And in the app SRC directory in the apps.js. Also note that we have this app.js in the SRC directory, so we're editing the app.js instead of the app.js file. And we're pasting in the content of our React application. And app.css file. and index.css file. %d. When we are done with the updating the code file, let me sit back into the directory and run the npm run dev command. Yeah, so we have to update our index.js file to JSS file because the syntax is converted to JSS extension. Let's do that now. cd client src component.